Hey, welcome everyone, and a very happy new year to you. What we're going to do first is come into the room and become centered because there's a lot of information that will come through and we need to be present. So take a big breath, hold it for a bit. Now, slowly let it go. Feel your body relax as you do so. And now another breath, hold it slowly. Let it go, sink into your body. That's why you're here. Just one more. Let it go. And we are ready to begin, and we're so pleased you're here. And as we say to you each time, we have waited for you your entire lives. However, today you will understand why, because this is the most important time of your life, probably the most important time in your history. And 2025 will be the greatest year that you have ever experienced if you decide to make it that, which is why we gave you a message the other day that we said that you will succeed if that is your choice. It is always your choice, but there are dynamic times in your life and in your world where those choices become a bit easier. And that is today and forward from this time on. And you will notice that we've given you messages that will correspond to what's happening in your world and your life now. And if you go to our site, anyadvicefortoday.com, you will see that we have done that last year. We did it at the beginning of the year. And if you follow along, you will see that the energies change over time. Now, what we've just done is that we wanted to tell all of you how important you are to be in the world now, which is why we said your contribution will be enormous. That is when you notice it, when you recognize your value, what you've done, what you've moved through, what you've experienced, that is the value, and it is energy. And it's the energy that you can start to recognize now to start to change the trajectory of your life and your world. We have said that you came into the world to change it all. You came in to bring in the new world. And that's why it might have been challenging for many of you, or you didn't understand why you were having certain experiences, or you didn't understand the last several years of your life. But we're saying that you were here because you have something wonderful you wanted to bring forth and develop. And as you do that, you will have this great life and your world will change. And we know that you don't believe it. And that's why we did this last thing, because we want you to believe, and we had to take our messenger to do it first because he didn't know what he had done. None of you know what you have. It's a development that happens in your consciousness. It happens within you individually, but it also happens in your world that way as well. It happens in your society and your civilizations, and it goes over times now. But then when you have certain changes that happen, there will be individuals that will bring you information that can provide you with a better way of living, a new way of coming to understand who you are or the human experience. And our messenger agreed, and we'll say that because it was challenging, but he agreed to do that. And he didn't know what he had, just like you don't. So what we did, we had him go back and find so many messages that we had given you on a specific date. Today was one of them because it's a time where you have more energy that you're using to manifest your life and your world. You're all doing it. There's no one who has more power or ability than the other. You just accept a certain amount at a time in your life or your experience or your evolutionary journey when you are ready to. In 2012, we gave you a message saying infinite intelligence. We gave it to you on January 1st because we wanted you to understand the cycle that you would be moving through. And so if you access more of that intelligence that you always have access to, you would have a much easier time of moving through this transition because we told you it was going to be a little challenging because you're all being asked to change. And change is a little scary for you because changing means you have to let go of all your judgment of yourself. You have to stop thinking you were wrong. You have to stop thinking you screwed up. You have to stop thinking that you were born without any worth or purpose. That's never happened. You just discovered at a certain time. But we will tell you the reason you might not have noticed that is that you weren't given the skills or the tools to be able to do that. So we gave them to our messenger. And we did it, and we've gone through such lengths in the last several weeks because we needed him to change as we want all of you to. Because, see, your world doesn't change unless you do. We gave you that message a few years ago, but it may be more apparent to you now as you notice the conditions and the events occurring in your world. They're all energetic changes, and they've been aligned. The universe aligned all of them, and our messenger tapped into that information, which is why he healed. But it was challenging for him, and he didn't accept it. But we've told him, as we've told all of you, that false humility does not serve you or anyone else. What we're meaning is that you've each done things or accomplished things in your life that you don't notice and you don't appreciate it. So your value and your worth has never been recognized. So that has happened in your society, which is why it looks the way that it does now, and which is why we kept talking about the United States, because they were supposed to lead the way in terms of shifting and changing everything, because there was a huge cycle that's being completed now. This is why we kept going back to 2008 in some of the messages that we've given you recently, because that was an energetic change of Pluto, which you're moving through now, which is why this is the perfect time for you to become your best self. It's a perfect time for all of you to create the world that you want to have. And so, what we have said, we've given you a new way to do that because we've given you a new philosophy. Because you can see in your world that you're not all operating in the way that could serve the sustaining your life or even the world or your future. See, because we said that you all have infinite intelligence means that you could figure out how to create something that could change everything in your life and in the world. You each have that ability. You may not have developed it, but it is there. And that's what we wanted you to access and start to remember. And you're moving through a change, as we've said, this restructuring where there's a huge shift in consciousness that is occurring. And we said we're calling it a spiritual evolution or a revolution, might feel more like it, because that's what's going on. And so when we first started with our messenger, he was never going to tell any of you what he was doing. He was never going to tell you that he was speaking to us and finding something of a spiritual nature that made no sense. Except we said, well, where do you think you get information from? How do you think you form consciousness? How do any of you know anything? And then we said that consciousness is never completed. You each come into the world to add more to it, and you do that through your experiences, through what you have lived. Now, we know that many of you think, well, that's not important. I didn't do anything. And that's where you're wrong. Every single thing you have done has had value and worth because it had an energetic connection. Now, you may have judged it as being bad, and so that would have been a lower vibrational energy that you put into your life and then put into the collective consciousness of your world. But then you can start to change that when you decide to recognize it. But what happens is many of you don't want to look at things. The only reason any of you struggle is that you don't want to examine yourself. We know that doesn't seem to make sense, but it's exactly what's happened. And we gave you a message talking about the irony of your life. You move through it thinking that you're trying to be something else other than yourself, only to get to the life before you're going to die and then discover, oh, wait a minute, I was just trying to be myself. That's all of you. And so, right at this time in 2013, we even gave in our messenger, we told him, why don't you do this book called Becoming You? Because that's what each person needs to understand. They're becoming themselves. He didn't finish it, though. But now we're going to have him do it because we told him to write the other book, Your Life Operating Instructions, because that's what we've given all of you to live the kind of life that you could have when you understand how important you are. And that's only in consciousness. Now, we want you to understand something else. Consciousness is never formed. As we've said, you are creating it. And you create it by how willing you become to let go of everything that was old. That's within each person individually, because you're all the same. Now, we want to tell you why we did something else, because many have been confused. We've said, we talk about your other lives or you're an eternal spiritual being. And many of you have heard that and you just discount it. The reason that we say it is because we want you to understand how important you are. You've always existed. You haven't existed in physical form, but your consciousness, your soul has always existed. But what happens over time and over civilizations, you get talked out of your worth and value because there were those in control who wanted to tell you you weren't enough. And then you keep that separation going on forever, and then you end up with a world that looks like it's in chaos. And so we said, why don't we change that? Why don't we start telling them all that they all have worth and value? And it doesn't matter what race you are, it doesn't matter what gender you are, it doesn't matter how much money you have, because money doesn't mean anything. That's not the value. Everything is energy. You allow yourselves to have the abundance when you allow yourself to love who you are. And that's a process and it's a journey. However, we've given you the results of that journey. You heal. And just imagine if more of you were to do that, wouldn't you see your world in a very different place? That was the question that we asked you a while ago when we gave you a message and we said that utopia was attainable. But you all looked at that and you said, no, that's not possible. And we said, why not? He said, because I can't change. Well, then, and then other people can't change. And now you see where you are. Because we're saying you can, and we've shown you how you can heal everything. And the only problem will be you won't believe it. Now, we want you to understand something that's not your fault. You've been talked out of it, and that's the cognitive dissonance we've spoken of so often. Because you've studied things about your neuroscience now that you understand how you operate and how your emotions and everything are connected to the actions that you take. But when you don't know how that's occurring, then you can't change it. So we had our being figure it out because he spent his entire life, well, 35 years, doing that, writing it down every single day and walking through it and then proving the results because he kept healing. And it was the most treacherous thing ever. And then for 30 years, he couldn't walk well because of an accident, because of 30 those years ago, because he wasn't taking care of himself. This is what we're saying to all of you. When you lose the focus on who you are and your importance, then you allow yourself to be victim to all kinds of things. We wanted you to become empowered, which is why we gave you all of this work, because it was the most important thing that you could do at this time in your life, but more importantly, for this time in your civilization. We had our messenger just do something else because he didn't know what he had. So he went and he did this kind of research. And we love the fact that you have AI now. Many of you have been afraid of your artificial intelligence. It's going to take you over. We told you that couldn't happen if you're putting in the type of information that would cause it to do something that would be sustaining for your world. Now, there are many beings who are not going to use that energy, but when you become aware, you will use it in a way that will cause your life to become more and also your world. And that's, we know that, because otherwise you wouldn't be listening to us. You would have never been here. You've never been in an accidental place in your life. We always say that, but you will start to find it out. We also said, and we want you to understand, this infinite intelligence, you don't accept it all at once, so don't judge yourself about that. Many years ago, we told you that we had our messenger look at Isaac Newton. He didn't know why we were doing that. Why we said he didn't know. And then today we said, go do it again. And he did. He said, oh, wait a minute. There's a Wilhelm in there. Yes, because there's a connection. We have given him information over this time that's connected to every great mind that has come before. And so then we told him to do a comparison. Why did we have him looking at Wilhelm, at this guy, at Newton? Because there was a Wilhelm there that they worked with and developed calculus, you know? And we said to him, well, you came through on February 19th of 1989. Well, February 19th, that was a date in history too. We're saying this because there's an organization in your world that you start to figure out that all the energies are aligned that affect you. This is why we've said you were born at the right time, because your DNA is your genetic code that is activated and awakens at different times in the world. And more of you are coming to that awareness now, which is why you might have been a little afraid or uncomfortable or nervous. But we are saying it's for a great reason, because you're about to break through. You're about to figure out who you are. You're about to manifest the greatest life that you could ever have. And all you have to do is keep moving. And we're saying that because we know it's possible, because we're showing you now. But the other thing we did, and we're being the best example ever, because we said, when we told our messenger that he had this work, he said, no, that's not possible. You each have done that about the thing that's in front of you, about the thing that you're supposed to do. But that's okay, because it takes time for you to accept that. And you'll see that we gave you that message a couple of days ago last year. We're saying that because you'll read it in the messages that will come out, because we've already planned it, because we know that self-acceptance takes time for all of you. And guess why? Because there's always more for you to accept. Now, we're talking about the self that is attached to source. that is attached to all that is, not anything else that what you might think of. We're talking about your eternal nature and your worthiness, because you all have that. You just get off track at certain points in your evolutionary paths or whatever life you might be living. But we know that you're all connected, which is why we have given you information. When we told our messenger that we had, if he were to meet someone, because this is an energetic connection again, we would had given them a message on their birthday in 2012. And that didn't seem possible. And then he started checking it and he goes, every time it happened, yes, it was accurate. And it was beyond that. And just recently, we started showing him, and you can go back to the messages just 2 days ago or yesterday, because we had him put it up there. Check the astrological aspects and the major events that happened in this last year. And then he went and looked and saw that we had given him information, and information probably over years. We're saying this because we want you all to understand that you do have this energetic connection. We know many of you don't understand or think you don't have a divine plan. You do. And we've given you a way to figure it out, because we know it's there and we can see it all the time. And that's the most frustrating thing for our messenger, because he knows it and he can see it, but he can't do that for you. This is the frustration that many of you will have, seeing what you're meant to do, but then not moving with it. But now the energy is behind you. The energy is on your back. You can do it. This is why we're doing this now. We're going to say something else. Nothing's happening accidentally. This wasn't supposed to happen today. But Stan went ahead and figured out that he was supposed to do this. But there was no accident, because we already knew it, because what we did is that our messenger prepared something else to give you for today, because we said it's your gift. Because we wanted you to understand how every year you have this opportunity to take the next step in your life and create something great. You never get there all at once, because it's a process, and it's really aligned with your individual evolutionary path. And what we wanted you all to understand is that there's no hierarchy of souls. That's the period. That's what you're moving through now. That's why it's been so challenging, because you have those who think that they are more powerful than you, and that has never been the case. And that's been the problem in your society, in your world now. And so this is why we gave you a new philosophy to think about yourself and others and your world in an entirely new way, so that you can bring in your new world. Now, what we're going to do is begin with your questions, because we've seen a couple that came in before, and there's some answers that we're going to give, but they require more context, which will be great for all of you who will be listening later, because we know that's what will happen. But we're doing this also because we have to finally take our messenger out of his shadow self, because that's what you all have when you hide from who you are. Now, we will say he did not know that he had all of this, and we're saying, because none of you do, we just want you to understand it's always a discovery. And so when we showed him in these last couple of weeks everything that we had given him and how it had healed his life, and then he starts walking again better. It's been increments that's happened to get to the place now where it's like, wow, I'm in a new person. I'm in a new, and we've given you a message to say that you can do that. Your mind, body, all your conditions are about energetic connections and alignment. That's all that it is. And each of you can find that alignment. It's within you. It's different, but it's yours and it's unique. And this is why we're doing this today, to finally explain to everyone, including his family. That's the other thing too. You all will find that you will be changing at this time in ways you didn't expect, and wondering how these other people that you used to know are so different, because you have an evolutionary path that is uniquely yours, and it's being awakened now. So we're going to help you. Let's do some questions now and see what we come up with.
I was just typing in the chat to answer Steve's question here. Yes, Steve, you may absolutely ask your question. If any of you have already submitted your questions prior when you registered, we have them. Those are what we'll be answering first. All other questions, if you have more questions, please ask them right here in the chat. I will ask them on your behalf anonymously. So yes, go ahead. Ask all the questions you want in the chat, and I got you. Okay, first question. Lately, after reflecting on self-judgment and how it shows up during triggering moments, I've noticed it often causes me to pause and listen. Could this be my shadow consciously seeking attention for unresolved issues? What are your thoughts on befriending our shadows? Would it help us live more aligned?
You are such a wonderful person, and we're so glad that we pulled you here so that you could say that, of course, because that's the problem. Most of you don't want to look at it. You're a very aware person because you noticed it. Most of you will notice it and then you'll try to run from it, but you did something different. You noticed it and then you listened. That was brilliant because when you were listening, you were saying, okay, wait a minute. I'm not supposed to have this. What's going on here? And then you got something else, and you started to form a process. You understood how consciousness develops, and so that was exactly what it was. And we're so glad that you asked the question because there was still this little bit of doubt if that was what was occurring, but it was occurring, and we want you to keep trusting it because you're coming into greater awareness of who you are, and you will help so many others. So thank you very much.
What is the most difficult issue or thoughts I need to focus on changing?
The first one that comes to your mind when you wrote those words, because you know what it is, and you wouldn't say it. That's why you wrote it in that way, but it's right in front of you. You all do this. You have that thing that's sitting right in front of you. Going, what is it? Why can I do this? It is there. Now, you may not have figured a way to start to approach it to move beyond it, but it is never hidden. And we've given you that message as well. And we also told you to do something else. And this will be helpful for you. We said to go to our website and put in the word hidden in the search bar and just search and see what comes up. And so then when you do that today, you will see your question will be answered in greater depth. Thank you.
I first discovered Roger back when I was chasing my dream of breaking into the music industry. Life happened, and instead of focusing on the voice lesson emails, I found myself drawn to the a thought for today messages. Everything coming through Roger has resonated with me on a level that I'm still trying to fully understand. How can I tap into my higher self to take control of my destiny and unlock my fullest potential?
You're already doing it just by noticing because you heard us through Roger, and so that's what brought you in. And you were attracted to him because your higher self was saying this is the place to go that is going to start leading you to the next part of your journey. Many times you will go on excursions, let's call them, that lead you in different places that you did not expect. And right now, many of you are experiencing that. And so that means that you're moving into what is more of your right, your lane, as we've called it. We gave you a message the other day that's in the string of message. So we said, stay in your lane. Now, that lane is who you're meant to be authentically, and you may not find that right away. And then it starts to show up. And that is what is occurring for you. And so it's going to occur for all of you now because it's going to be different. And so our messenger, he had to struggle with this. And we're so glad that you brought it up because that's been the thing that was so difficult because he had to let go of all the money he was earning when he was doing the voice stuff because we said you have something else you're meant to do now because it's going to be a lot more beneficial for you and others. Many of you will make moves like that. And so you've done it and you've become so aware, and you are already, by the moves you've done and by becoming aware of it, you're opening to that process. And so just stay with us and you'll have all of it. Thank you.
Okay, next question here. Dear Wilhelm, I have heard I have I'm sorry, let me try that again. Text a little bit too small here. Dear Wilhelm, I have a hard time disconnecting from my old life, and so I'm starting anew. In this age of Aquarius, could you give me guidance on how to move forward?
Yeah, we already did. It's up. It's on the site for tomorrow. And we did it, gave it to you last year. We said start again. That's what you're all supposed to do. You're never in a static place. You're always moving somewhere else. And it's going to be those movements will be more dynamic now because there's more movement happening in your world. And you all agreed. We're saying this because you'll accept this eventually because you agreed to be here at this dynamic time that was going to shift everything around. And so what you might have been doing before is being shifted around in a new way. And so just go with that. And when you said I have a hard time disconnecting from my old self, well, yeah, you all do. But we want you to disconnect from that old self. Some of you are finding it really challenging because you're saying, I don't know who I am anymore. You're not supposed to because who you are is something more than you have ever been, you see? And so you have to become willing to move into that unknown part of yourself, which we've said many of you fear, which is why this particular period in your world has been so challenging because you're looking at your world and you're wondering, is there going to be what's going to be the next war? Who's going to do the next horrible thing? Well, you're going to do the next great thing, and that's what will change everything. And that's what's occurring now, which is why you're being moved to awaken to new aspects of who you are. And we're so pleased because now you're going to do something really wonderful for yourself and everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you for all of the questions coming in from the chat. Yes, every single question that comes in, I'm keeping tabs of, and we're going to get to as many of them as possible. Once we start getting close towards the end, I will give you guys a notice. But in any case, on to the next question. One day after a rough day at work, I broke down and cried my heart out about how much I don't want to do my job anymore. I'm a bartender. As I cried, I looked up at the lights in my home and saw rainbow auras around them. Then I had a stream of thought that said, "You have finally chosen." I don't know what that means. Was this experience from my guides? And can you help me understand what I chose?
Yes, because you've given us that question before. And so it's a second time, which means that you're still struggling with your resistance because you awakened to something when you had that moment. Now, and it was and you described it brilliantly because you were staying stuck somewhere in a job where you're not stuck, but we don't want you to make any rash moves, but we want you to recognize the awareness. You say, wait a minute, there's something else I'm meant to do, and it's uncomfortable being here. But many times so many of you will stay in uncomfortable situations, no matter what they are. It could be your work or a relationship or whatever, simply because they have become familiar and known to you. And that's what's happening a lot in your world now, which is why many of you are having difficulties. And we're saying, let go of it. So you have become really aware that you're letting go of something. And so just go with it. Just trust what you are hearing, which is what we've also said, because you wouldn't have no roadmap right now. Trust what you're hearing, and that's in your heart, who you are meant to become. And so, and yeah, that's what we want to give you now. If you have need some follow up, you can send something else, but we want you to sit with that for a moment. Okay, thank you.
Hi there. Is it possible that I'm not healing for a reason? I've tried everything and I still believe anything is possible. What do you think?
Well, you said it all right there because you know everything is possible, but you don't believe it. There's a difference there. And so there's a difference of belief that you all will come to. Our messenger has known this, and this is why he talks about the Carl Jung thing, because many of you will get this, and this is going to be helpful for you. Watching an interview with Carl where he was asked, "Do you believe something?" And for many of his years, as he's working and developing things, yes, he did try to believe it, but then he reached the place where he knew. And then when he knew, there was a different energy because that's that ownership that you each take when you know. And so that's why you're in that place. And it is not that you have not healed. It's just that you're examining things in a different way. Now, we don't know precisely what your physical thing might be, but we said that healing does not necessarily occur on the physical level. It may not happen in your body. That's not, and so when we talk about the healing that has happened for our messenger, yes, it's showing up on this physical way now, but he had to do it in his spiritual body. He had to do it there first, you see? And so that's maybe what's happening for you. But even though you may not be seeing the results, you could have possibly healed so much in your spiritual body that you're not acknowledging yet. Because sometimes the physical healing will never show up in this life, but the spiritual healing is always happening. And you've done so much of that simply because you've said how much you've been doing for so long. Now it's going to be this time of you recognizing that and then understanding the worth and value that is in there. That's what's going to happen for you. Thank you.
How can I find my place in this reality? I'm following my joy and inspiration, but how do I balance that with the mundane tasks like earning money, paying bills, cleaning the house? taking care of my children and parents, and everything else that needs to get done.
Hmm. You haven't, you haven't, wow. You're, we're just caught by that question because you've demonstrated exactly what we wanted to say to everyone. All those mundane things that you thought you were doing, that you think you're doing, are the most valuable things that you could bring to your planet right now. And that's why you agreed to do it. You just have been making yourself less by thinking it didn't have as much value. And this is what's happened in your society and in your world, that you're putting, so you don't put the value on individuals because of the type of things or the work they might do or whatever, but they're all important. And so for you, you're the greatest example. And so with everything that you're doing now, we love that you said mundane, make them fun. Make everything that you're doing fun. You're gonna change your attitude when you're taking care of the kids, when you're doing the laundry, it's fun because you're supporting something, and that's an energy that you're placing into the universe that is powerful because you're deciding to do it and you agreed to do it because you knew it was going to be valuable. So we just want you to change your perception of yourself. Your contribution will be enormous. That's why we created that title for you. Thank you.
For those of us who recognize our alien kinship, will the general populace begin to see it and be accepting of it because of the massive ongoing restructuring?
Not necessarily. That's your job. See, because there will be many of you, and this is going on now. There are many of you who are seeing different things, and you're wondering if I should be there. Thank you for bringing this up because we want to. When you move your generate a huge shift like this, you lose control of your consciousness a little bit, and so many things might come up. And we sent our messenger to see this little documentary. That's what they called it, called "Love Has Won." And this was some spiritual new age thing that was going to bring all this thing, and this leader was going to do that, and it turned into a cult. And that's the kind of thing that has happened to a lot of spirituality, because what happened was they're trying to place all this energy and power into one person. We told you that's what you're here to change now. That's not the way this is going. You're each meant to find your own empowerment. And so you've had institutions, and we said the church, that's why we took you back to Martin Luther more 500 years ago. We used that to show where change needed to happen. So you stop being controlled in your consciousness, you see. So that is what you're doing now by understanding your importance. You're all doing it, but we're explaining it in this way because we want you all to understand the only thing that ever happens is that your consciousness gets subjugated. That's all. It happens over civilization. We've gone back in the beginning. We told you how that happened when you had different people who were the rulers and had all the power, and then you also brought in money where you started attaching your value to that. None of that mattered. It's about who you are. And that's what you're figuring out now. And that's why the restructuring was necessary. So more of you have value of who you are, regardless of what you own. It's just about who you are as a soul. And that's what we wanted you to come to understand. And you all are doing that now. We're pleased. Thank you.
Oops, my microphone was muted. Why do I get jealous sometimes when my partner talks to someone else?
Because you attracted them into your life so that you could be pointed out this little part of you that tells you you're not enough. That's all. So thank them for saying that. Thank them for doing that, because then it points out to you that jealousy. And we gave you a message that you couldn't have understood and properly in this way. Because we tell you that when you're jealous, it's because you're looking at those people who are teaching you something about yourself, you see. So there's no reason for you to be jealous because you are enough. And there's a person, there are plenty of people who will come to understand that when you do. So we're pleased. We don't want you to judge yourself, and we don't even want you to judge the relationship right now because we don't know where it's going. But you're in it now to give you some, to bring about, to facilitate some healing within you, because you should never feel that inadequate where you need to be jealous if your partner is speaking to someone else, because you are much stronger than that. You are worth so much more, but you didn't know that yet. So you allowed this situation to be in your life so you could rectify it. And you will rectify it every time you decide that you're going to love yourself and look at those moments when you decide to become jealous and say, oh, wait a minute, I've just forgotten who I am for a moment. That was the message that we gave you in 2008, yesterday, in the very beginning. You know everything. You've just temporarily forgotten. That's all. Thank you.
At the start of 2024, I figured out a number code that I deciphered into the word EK-I. Is this truly connected to me? And am I on the right path by repeating that code in numbers? And the code again, ECK
Mhm.
dot I dot.
Mhm. Yes. See, because it's unique to you. We can't explain that to you. We can't tell you what it means. We don't know that, but you will find it. And so what we'd like you to do, and this is the other thing too, when you find something like this, you all have, which is why we said our messenger, we wanted him to use more science or technology to understand things. And so when you find something like that, make it a game. Do a search. Be an explorer. Do a search on your internet and just say, what does this mean? Just put it in that. What does this mean? And as you keep examining that and see where it leads you, because it'll lead you somewhere. And so why did that come up? Because see, that is a connection that's coming through for you that is unique to you from your higher self, from your guides, that is about the next part of your path. It's a clue. We said that you get glimpses of these things over time. You all do. And then they start to show up in different ways. This is why we talked about our messenger going back to Newton and then seeing Wilhelm just this morning. The connections always become apparent and reveal themselves when you become when it's time in your life, when it's the right timing. There's always right timing, and so that's what's coming up for you now. So we want you to, because there's something in there. We don't know what it is, but you do. Your higher self does, and so they're giving you directions to start to search and see why it came there, because it wasn't random. You knew that because that's why you wrote it down. And so now just have fun with it and see where it leads you. Thank you.
My life partner passed away unexpectedly on December 15th. His son is hoarding his belongings, which is just one of the many things making it so hard for me to process his death. He died in his sleep right next to me. Now I have a full-time dog that I love, but even that comes with complicated feelings. How can I move through this with grace while still using my voice when I feel pushed aside?
Well, you're doing it. See, this is what happens. You have done the most courageous thing ever, and the kind of grief that you would experience through that, but to express it in the way that you did means that you have a greater awareness of something beyond this world that you're connected to. And this is why you had that experience, and why we gave you the message the other day, the last one we said in the whole series, we said God never gives you anything you can't handle, that thing you always know that you've heard, but you sometimes don't believe, but that's what you're doing. And so now you have moved beyond it. Don't you said something that is not true. How can you are doing it in your way? You've done so much, and we know that it's a challenging now, but just start to appreciate what you've already accomplished. And so there is something coming through where you're going to have the support. And even though your partner's there, their energy is still there. There, you felt that too. We got that. They're still there and supporting you, and you know that. And so now it's about you charting your course. That's what you're all meant to do now. That's why we said your contribution will be enormous. That's what's going on. And so you're doing all the correct things. We want you, but we also want you to give yourself some rest, give yourself some comfort and some forgiveness, and just more love. because this you get because you there's another part of you that doesn't allow yourself fully to embrace what you're moving through, and we want you to take that time and because you feel like you've got to do all these other things and get that done, and you will get it done, but take care of yourself first. That's going to be the most important thing for you now. But you're already doing it because you're so aware to have stated your dilemma, as you might think of it in that manner, but you'll understand so much more of it soon. Thank you.
So we've got a few more questions in the queue, and I just want to say that we still have room for some more. So if you have any other questions that you haven't asked yet, feel free to ask them. We still have space. How can I find the courage to step into my life path and purpose when it feels so overwhelming and frightening? All I want to do is hide from the spotlight.
Mhm. Oh, why do you think it does? What do you think? What do you think our messenger has done for years and years and years? Which is why we said you can't do that anymore. So you're in a great place. You're in a wonderful place, and you're in a wonderful place on your timeline and for the timeline of your world, because you don't all awaken at the same time and in different and in the same way. And so what's happening for you is that you're feeling this and it feels enormous. Our messenger has done that, which is why he's held himself back, because he thought, if I put this out, it's going to be too much. It's going to be too big. Too many people are going to come. Well, that didn't happen because most people won't believe that they can change that. And so you're having that going on as well. We do embrace it. But because the thing that's happening is that you're being told that you're being given this enormous thing. We can use that again right here because that's what it feels like to you. And every time you're just going to build your strength. That's what happens for all of you when you're being courageous. And we love the way you started that, because that is what you're each doing all the time, is being courageous to take the next step into authenticity, accepting who you are, because you're so worried about what everyone else is going to think and all of that. So you have a great way of going about it now. And so that's what we want you to keep developing, and you're doing it, and it's going to help so many other. You're all doing it, by the way. This is what's so great about this particular time, even though you may not see it that way. Thank you.
Roger and Wilhelm say we are here to become our most authentic selves and experience joy in life. After this lifetime, if the oversoul decides for the higher self to reincarnate and create a new personality, does that personality come to Earth again to learn to be its highest authentic self? Or does completing it in this lifetime end the reincarnation cycle? Thanks, Wilhelm and Roger, and Happy New Year.
You always have choice. That's not, we can't tell you. You have a choice because you can in the cycle. Our being was told that this was his cycle, that he went, and you can hear it. It was on his Akashic records. I said this is a completion. He hasn't made that decision. He's going to see how long he can live now after he's discovered all these new things. He goes, wait a minute, I'm 74 and I'm getting better. Let's see what happens. You don't know, but you always have the opportunity to choose. It feels like you all feel like you have no free will. You do, it's just not conscious. However, you will be able to decide that. But also, why are you there right now? We just want to say we know that that's a concern for many of you, but we're feeling like we love that you have that awareness that that is there. But we also want you to use this 3D physical world right now to become the best version of yourself, because that's going to propel you to that next dimension that you're always seeing. And it's going to make that flight a lot easier if you do your work of developing and loving you now. Thank you.
Since late November, and let's see, yes, since late November and throughout December, I've been experiencing profound downloads of information during my meditation practices with increasing frequency and intensity.
Mhm.
These transmissions feel deeply significant, but I can't help questioning whether they are trustworthy guidance or just fleeting constructs of my mind. My instinct urges me to embrace these insights, interpret their meaning, and act on their directives they seem to offer. Should I trust and align with them, or is it wiser to practice discernment and detachment?
We love you so much. We could, yeah, we could not have brought anything better to give you all understanding because Our messenger, he started receiving us in 1989. And if you look at that very first message, because we put it up on the site, we hadn't put it up on the site this year, from 1989, and he discovered that he uncovered something, and it frightened him at the same time. And he wasn't going to do it because, wait a minute, this is power. What am I going to do with it? Because he thought he was going to use his ego. And he says, use it in an ego oriented way, which he couldn't do because he had to move through all the ego oriented stuff to come to the place now where it's this pure information that's coming through. You're coming into an awareness of that as well, which is why it feels enormous. And that's okay. You're going to trust it. You're going to take it a step at a time. The reason that we have laid out all of our work and to show you, because many of you think you're just going to do something today and it's going to be changed tomorrow. That never happens. That's not how your human minds or bodies work, and it's not how your soul operates either. However, when you understand that you can take just the next step and it's always unfolding and you're becoming more, you start to accept it and it won't become so overwhelming. And we do understand that feeling because again, that is what our messengers had, but you will that enormous thing that's going to come is never going to be too much. Just understand that you're accepting it daily, a moment at a time, just put it that way. And then it doesn't become overwhelming. And then all of a sudden, what happens is you reach into this new normal, let's call it, where you're just like, oh, I can do this now and I can just move here and I can think this way. It takes practice but you can do it. But you're coming into that awareness now, which we're so pleased with, and you're going to keep developing it for so many others. Thank you.
I'm realizing I need to be much more structured and committed this year to the things I want to bring success and joy. Do you have any practical advice beyond just maintaining focused attention?
But that's it. There's nothing else. Because see, when you have focused attention, you will notice when you don't. And that's what's going to help you. And so no, this is it. And you brought that up because it spoke to you. Focused attention spoke to you, which means it's going to help you because you will all come up with many different things that you might want to do. But really what happens is you're running from the thing that is the most important that you want to do because it frightens you a little bit, but that's okay. And you're coming to understand that. And so just keep taking the next step on the thing that you want to do that is in front of you. We're saying this to all of you. And so you came up with the best idea. And yes, this time, and we love that you said it on this date when you're moving into this, the structure of Capricorn, which all of you could use right now to start building your new life. And you knew that. And that's absolutely perfect. And just start envisioning it and putting together what you want to see. And we're saying to all of you, this is the year that you can do it. Now, we're talking about energy again. There's certain times in your life and in your history and just in general in the world where it's just a little bit easier to do things because of the energy that is available. That time is going to be in 2025 if you decide that you're going to become your success. It's a choice you each make. Thank you.
Again, I was about to respond to a question in the chat. Uh, and the question is, uh, will a copy of this event be sent for us to view again? Yes, this will be up on YouTube um, either tonight or by tomorrow, and we will send you all a link, a direct link to it, in case you're not subscribed to Roger's YouTube channel. But yes, you will get a link to a copy to watch this all over again. Thank you for that question. Now, a question for Wilhelm. What is the best way to move forward after experiencing trauma? Thank you.
To acknowledge that you did it. That's the best way to move forward. We want to give you that, and you all have trauma. And what happens is you attempt to ignore it or try to put it away so you don't look at it. But we want you to understand that if you agreed to have the trauma, we're saying it in a different way because we don't want you to feel like you were a victim of anything in your life. But if you agreed to move through the experience of trauma, there was something for you to gain there. And so then you're going to ask yourself, we're going to take you out of the victim mode now, and you're going to ask a new question. Why did I allow myself to experience this trauma? What did I gain from it? What am I supposed to do with it? Becomes a very different trajectory that you put yourself on rather than the victim mentality that you're kind of feeling now, because that's how that question came through, you see, because you were not being a victim. You were experiencing trauma because you were releasing something from your evolutionary path, which will do the same for the collective. And so we're pleased that you have done that. So we just want you to take away your judgment and find that what you have gained from that experience. Thank you.
Okay, and we are now at capacity for questions. So we are going to answer the rest of the questions that are in this queue. Thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions, either through the registration or through the chat. Here's the next question. After seeing the rainbow auras around the lights in my house and venting about my life and what I want for it, I ended up losing my job. They fired me.
Mhm,
I'm struggling to stop resisting the changes happening in my life. Can you
mhm,
offer guidance on how to let go and
mhm.
embrace this? I feel
Yeah,
like
we
I'm
are.
trying,
Mhm,
but it seems like it seems like I am not quite getting there.
mhm. That's okay. All of that's okay. We don't, so, no judgment. It's all perfect. You were fired from your job because there's someplace else you want to go. Your higher self is guiding you there. You're not being a victim either. It's just you're being moved because you were stuck in a certain way. And so you're going to open up to the real thing that you want to do in this life that's going to come about, but you had to be pushed a little bit. So being thrown out into the cold would help you do that because now you have to find this gumption to courageous enough to find out what it is that you really want in this life. And we know that you hadn't felt that before, and you hadn't even felt it in that job that they fired you from, and you knew that. And so now, and you're asking all the correct questions. So we just want you to change your attitude about it because we want you to change your attitude to one of excitement. It's something different because the message that we gave you for tomorrow, we gave it to you last year. It says start again. That's what we want you all to do. When you are thrown that, that means there's another place in your evolutionary path that you're meant to go. And so it's not an accident. You just have to decide now I get to do what I want in my life. Maybe it's going to be challenging. Maybe it's going to be hard. Maybe I'll suffer a little bit, but it's going to be me owning myself. And that's where you're being moved. And if you have something else about that, you can let us know. But we are feeling that you've just been opened up to the opportunity for you, if you take the steps to become the success that within you, which is something that you know that's been there, but maybe now the time for you to let it come forth. Thank you.
I love my girlfriend, but we've drifted apart. I
Mhm,
know she's with me in spirit,
mhm,
but a self-proclaimed shaman told me that she's an evil witch. Should I
mhm.
challenge his claim or consider paying him to break these supposed curses?
Okay, this is the other thing too. The curses are within you. You, you can go to people to find if it gives you some sort of support and comfort, that can always help. But we also want you to understand that you have the ability within yourself to change anything if you decide to use the tools. Now, we're so happy that you said this because our messenger, he doesn't talk about a lot of things because we said this many years ago. He said, oh, I have the most, we said to many of you, I have the most valuable thing any of you could want, and that is control of your consciousness. You see, that's what it is. That's what becomes developed. And so when you develop that, you can transcend anything in your life. And that is what you are starting to come to awareness of and starting to develop. Well, you all are. You're just using it in a new way now. That's all. And so each of you have been given something. We're going to go back because if we just say this, it's going to help you and everyone else. Okay. You each have been given something you're meant to do in this world. And as you come in, you have to take a step each and every day. And that step will maybe give you something pleasurable, maybe not, whatever, but you're always gaining something, you learn something. And sometimes you might stay at a place that's uncomfortable for a really long time, years, let's say, and then you decide, I'm sick of that, I'm going to move somewhere else now. You're all doing that, and your world does the same thing. But you have to make choices that say, this is what I want. And that's what we wanted to bring to you all now. This is why we had our messenger see this film, this documentary last night. because it's exactly what we don't want any of you to do, is to give your consciousness away to someone else outside of you. You're so powerful. And this is what we wanted you to develop. And this is why we have given you this work, and why a messenger has spent through his whole life showing you how what it can do, because you have so much within you that you can develop now. And this is going to be the best year for you all to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for your sensitive message about my partner. I know my partner is still with me, though sometimes I yell at him for not leaving his wishes clear,
Mm-hmm.
especially so his son could understand.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing what I I've been doing what I love and am passionate about, being a full-time singer for many years. I'm not sure what the next step would be as I'm already doing what I love. I'm
Okay.
not particularly excited about things like putting myself out there on Facebook, so I feel like I'm just waiting for guidance while continuing my music work. Meanwhile, I'll focus on giving myself some time to heal, care for myself, and work on
Yes.
forgiveness. What are your thoughts?
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. That's all of it. And you're going to do it with your music. And we want you to work on the forgiveness with your music, with yourself, because what's going to happen is you're going to create something brilliant that's going to help so many others because of what you have moved through. Because your writing and what you're going to create now is going to have, yes, you've been doing that, but it's going to have a new meaning now, because it's coming from your experience. And we want all of you to appreciate the experiences that you've had, because they have value. No matter how they might have felt to you when they were occurring, they still hold that value for all of you. So, yes, you said all the right things. We want you to just go into loving your music, because that's your spiritual connection. You all know that. That's music, is that connection. But for you now, that's going to be the best thing ever. And then you're going to create something out of this. And we will give you a little idea about this to make it more fun. We've used this before because we love using your popular singers. We went back to Adele many, many years ago, where she became so huge because she sat and wrote songs out of her grief. And that's what happened. But it healed her. And now she has this different relationship. And now she's doing something completely different. But she used her pain to create something that brought her this enormous fame and wealth. But that wasn't what was important. But she what was more important was coming to connection with her soul. And that brought her everything else. That is what you are doing. And we're so pleased that you're going to do it. And yeah, we want to hear all the music that's going to come out of it. Thank you.
Okay, we have two more questions. Wilhelm, when are we getting the rest of the program?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, because now you've just pulled the covers. We're going to tell you all now. You each hold back who you are. We're just going to say it. We just got to come out with all of it now, because it becomes so uncomfortable to hold yourself back. And that's what our messenger has done forever, because it was so different what he was doing. No one had done this. How could this have happened? And he didn't believe himself. And that's why he held himself back. And so then what happened was, when we first convinced him, and we've put all this up just recently, because it was in 2021 when we convinced him that he had to do this, and he still held back, but he finally did it. And that was after a lot of cajoling to get him to do it. And then what happened was, he saw the people going, really doing things that he couldn't believe, because they were just expanding. And he thought, wait a minute, it took me decades to do this. How are they doing it so quickly? And he actually got a little upset about it. We're just being honest. That's what happened. Got depressed. And then he said, "What if I had had this? My life would have been different now. I wouldn't have had to go through all of the things I did." But then he also couldn't have created what he has. You see, that's for each of you. And so that's what we want you to understand. You're each doing that now. So, yes, it could have been a little challenging. So, for him, it was really challenging. And that's why it isn't there, which is why we decided to do this today, because we told him, you can no longer do this. And you have people waiting for this content, and you're going to do it now. And so, yes. And we told him this years ago, because you will see there was a message we said, and we're not going to show it. It said deadlines could be helpful for you now. some of you that could be helpful, but for him it is because he held back because it just didn't make sense what he had done. We don't want any of you to do that. We want you to understand that you're never limited, no matter who you are, when you're living. Human potential is always expanding and you have access to it. Sometimes it can frighten you, and that's what it did for him, which is why we gave you all that message as well. But now you're going to embrace it more. So thank you for asking that question because you've called him out, and now it's all going to be there, and you all see how much is going to be there next week, even because he's already been working on it. We've given him everything. You all seen this. We showed the stacks of writings for 35 years that he did. So he has plenty of information to give you, and it's healing. And that's what we want you to have. And so he'll do it now. Thank you for that.
Before we get to the final question, I will preemptively say that we'll kind of tag team this, the answer. I'll answer first, and then I'll let Wilhelm uh, finish up answering. And here's the final question. I hope Roger doesn't feel bad about all the money he might have missed out on. He's given the small-time girls so much hope. I once dreamed he'd be my vocal coach, but I truly believe everything happens for a reason. How can I still feel like part of the family while I'm struggling to figure out my purpose and navigate life's ups and downs? It's been tough lately, and I can't afford to support Roger right now. Payment plans, perhaps. And here's where I just want to briefly mention something. Uh, I personally, I've been very sick over December. I caught a flu and developed pneumonia, and I've been unable to do a lot of the normal work. Even some simple things like getting broadcast email broadcasts out to you guys. Um, we had we wanted to remind you guys consistently about the Cyber Monday deal that we have with the program, the most affordable thing that Roger really wanted to put into everybody's hands, and that was supposed to have expired today. I'm kind of calling an audible on this. I'm extending that offer for one more week because Roger and I did talk about raising the price of the program to what it really needs to be at the beginning of this month. We're going to hold off on doing that for at least one more week. And so I already just went into the system. And yes, there are payment plans. If you go to yourlastdevelopmentprogram.com, you will see the program there, the 4 weeks to your best life, and which will turn into your last development program. And again, thank you for that question. There are payment plans available, and the discount is available for those payment plans uh, to make it the most affordable that we can really fairly make it. So we really want you guys to go and have a look. And I'm feeling so much better now. So I will be doing my job now and reminding everybody about this so that because there were a couple of people who said, oh, I didn't know about this. And that's my bad. So just letting you guys know, one more week, just in case you have not seen that yet. And I am complete with my answer. Wilhelm?
Was there another question there? That,
Um, well, just in case you had any more, and I'll ask the question
about,
one more time.
about the program?
About however you wanted to respond to the
Okay,
message.
we'll
Yeah.
give you this because this is exactly where we were coming to today. So thank you for that. And whoever brought that up, it was perfect because none. Hmm, we're going to go back to the beginning because as we've said, our messenger he hid forever. We put out several messages just in the last couple of weeks saying, please stop hiding. We said we may have finally broken you because of knowing things and then not acting on it. Now, it was challenging because he was doing something a little bit different because he was compiling a philosophy. That's challenging for anyone to live through, but that's why it didn't get out. And then there's also this other thing, and anyone who knows him will know that he has to make sure that it's valuable, that it works. And he was never going to charge more because that's what he kept being told to do. But it's now he has to shift because it's an energetic change that you all must make, and he has to do the same thing. That's why we're pushing him because what we know is that you can accomplish anything, any of you, because you just need tools. That's all. Now, again, he had only given you 31 days of our work, and that's what caused all the results so far. And then he stopped. And so that's why we said no. And that's why we had him go through these last several weeks. And you can see them. They're on the YouTube videos where we had him put strings of information. He's done so much. You would never finish all the work that we have given him ever, because then you'll take it and develop something more. That's how this is supposed to work. You will take all this information we have given him and you will use it in your life to create something great, give it back to others, and that's how your world evolves. And that was our intention and why we've done everything. And so we are so happy that you're here and we love you so much. And we want to tell you, you will have the best 2025 ever if you decide to just become yourself and love who you are. That is your journey, and we're just supporting you on that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. That completes our session for today.